want to thank everyone for joining May's edition of our Experts and Insights series. Today's program is titled Decluttering: Why Should I Do It and Why Is It So Hard? So we have a lot of exciting things for you today. Just so everyone knows what to expect from the program, we'll start by hearing from an expert in the field. Then Senior Planet Trainer Johnny Hernandez will be facilitating a Q&A for our presenter. So as those questions come into the chat, he'll be keeping an eye out for them. Then Johnny will be doing a short tech demo on using Facebook Marketplace, which can be a great way to get rid of unwanted items from your home. And then we'll close by asking your insights both on this program and on Facebook Marketplace in general. Lastly, I want to mention we'll be hosting a couple of follow-up sessions next week. First on Wednesday, a conversation specifically around paper decluttering. And then on Thursday, a more in-depth program on Facebook Marketplace. So if you're interested in those, we'll be popping those links into the chat right now. Get those in there. So before I introduce our presenter, I'll just mention that Senior Planet seeks out subject matter experts for these programs, many of whom have used their expertise in the for-profit sector. So we're thrilled to have Tracy here today. She has a ton of fantastic information to share from you. And just want to note that as a nonprofit, Oats and Senior Planet don't specifically endorse any particular platforms or products. So with that, I would like to introduce Tracy McCubbin. Tracy is the CEO and founder of Declutterfly, one of America's top decluttering companies. Over the last 2 decades, she's helped thousands of clients clear the clutter in their lives to create space for positive life changes. Tracy is also the author of Making Space Clutter-Free and her latest book, Make Space for Happiness. Tracy looks at the root of our clutter to find the real cause and ways to find real solutions. So I'm very excited to welcome Tracy here today. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Tracy.
Hi. Okay. I'm so excited because I'm going to screen share, and I love that I have tech support. So let me just see if I can get this. Great. Does everybody see do you see my graphic?
Yep.
Great. Fantastic. I'm super, super excited to be here. I want to say thank you to Oats and Senior Planet. And I also want to know, I'm 59. So in your book, is that a senior? Can I call you for tech support? Can I use
You sure can.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Okay, so my name is Tracy McCubbin, and I own a company called Declutterfly. We are a professional organizing and decluttering company. We're based in Los Angeles, but we're getting ready for nationwide expansion. I have been a professional declutterer and organizer for 18 years now. I have worked in thousands and thousands of homes. I have seen every kind of clutter that there is. And one of the services that my company offers is we do senior downsizing. So we help people downsize from their lifelong homes into smaller spaces. We help families after someone has passed. So I have a very, very, very long time experience with seniors and their stuff. To kind of add a personal note to it, I am the child of a hoarder. My father has extreme hoarding disorder. So I have been helping him and dealing with it my whole life. So I have a lot of compassion and empathy. I'm not going to be discussing hoarding disorder today. It's a very different topic. Today, we're really just going to be talking about garden variety clutter, what it is, why it's so hard to get rid of, why your kids don't want any of it. But if you or someone you love, if you're worried that they are dealing with hoarding disorder, please reach out to me. They will put my contact in the chat and I can direct you to resources. The other part that comes to my ability to help seniors with clutter is I grew up very, very close to my grandparents, and especially one of my grandmothers. And she had my dad when she was in her 40s. So by the time I came along, she was in her 80s, I think. And I always tell this story. She lived in the same house her whole entire life. And in the house, in the medicine cabinet, was this little box of Band-Aids. But they didn't look like any Band-Aids I'd ever seen in the store. They had funny logos on them. And they were there. I'm telling you, from the minute I started going to that house. And when I was about 16, I scratched my eye helping her prune the grape leaves. And she was like, "Oh, honey, don't worry. I have a Band-Aid that's big enough to fit over your eye." So for the first time in my life, she goes into the bathroom and she grabs this mystery box of Band-Aids and she goes to put it on my eye. And I was like, Grandpa, where did those come from? And she's like, oh, honey, they're perfectly safe. Your grandfather brought them back from the war. My grandfather fought in World War One. So those Band-Aids had been in my grandmother's medicine chest since World War One. So I understand the generational struggle. I understand that people come to their relationship with their stuff. You know, were your family immigrants? Were you an immigrant? Were you a child of the Depression? Were your parents a child of the Depression? So many things inform our relationship with stuff. And I think that sort of now it's very easy for people to say, just throw it away, go buy something new, without understanding the complexities. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself. And this is a job we did recently, a woman who was so lovely, whose husband had passed away, and she had kind of really gotten isolated and lonely. And her craft room got to the picture on the left, and we came in and helped her clear it all out. So there's so much involved in terms of getting rid of stuff. And for a lot of people, you know, if you look at this picture, you might say, oh, well, she's a hoarder and she has hoarding disorder. But really what happened for her is she lost her husband. She got very lonely. The pandemic hit. She wasn't getting out. She wasn't as mobile as she once was. And she just kept shopping online. She just kept buying. And when her family finally started to check in and saw this, they wanted to bring in help for her. So it's really important to understand that we're all struggling with clutter, all of us. It's so easy to shop now. It's so easy to, you know, just get things delivered to the house. It's so easy. And as we age, it gets more difficult to let go for a variety of reasons, which I'll get into. So I wanted to show you this. I just saw this cartoon the other day and it just cracked me up. So I wanted to share it with you because I feel like it really does apply to our stuff, you know, that your mother kept something or your grandmother kept it and now you're keeping it and you think you want to give it to your kids. And it's just this, you know, unbelievable sort of passing on of why we have so much stuff. Okay. So let's talk about the reasons that we should declutter and get organized. Everyone tells us like, you just need to be organized. You need to declutter. But why? Why do you need to? So there's a couple really big reasons. One is being organized and decluttered saves you time. It also saves you money and it saves you stress. Okay. So if you think about it, time, as we age, we know this, is our most important commodity. I meant that, right? We see the clock ticking. Again, I'm almost to 60 and I just can't believe how fast the time has gone. So our stuff, our clutter eats up our time. We're constantly moving things around. We're trying to find a place to store it. We're trying to put it into, you know, where does it go? Where do I store it? Right. I call it the busy work of clutter, right? It eats up time. Then the next thing is money. Clutter costs money. You spent money to buy that stuff, right? And now you've got to spend money to store it. Sometimes I ask how many people out there have outside storage units. Today we went with how many people lived in their house. But, you know, the idea of having a storage unit outside your house that you're paying money for, you're spending good money to store your clutter. Or if you have a room in your house that's become the infamous storage depot or dumping ground, that's a part of your house that you can't use and you're paying for it. If you rent, you're paying rent. If you own, you're paying mortgage. There's a real cost. So you think about it. You buy it, right? You buy the stuff, then you have to pay to store it somehow. If it breaks, you've got to pay to fix it. And when you want to get rid of it, you've got to pay someone to take it away. So there's an ongoing cost to our clutter. There's other things like clothes in your closet with tags still on them that you bought that you're not using, not wearing. The one I'm the most guilty of is that I will go to the grocery store without a grocery list. And as my husband says, we have a mustard collection to beat the band. Every time I go there, I think we're out of mustard and I buy more mustard. So my refrigerator is cluttered with things I already have because I didn't take a minute to make a list. So that's the monetary cost of clutter. All right. The most important thing about clutter to know is that clutter causes stress. And I want to say this from the top. I am not proposing a minimalist lifestyle. I am not saying get rid of everything and have 3 books and 1 sweater. I love stuff. I love pretty stuff. I have a lot of stuff at my house that I use every day. I have some stuff that I don't use, but I love to look at it. So understand that I'm not coming in here and telling you it has to be a certain way. I want your house to work for you. So a lot of studies have been done about the stress that clutter causes. Our brains only have so much ability to take in new information and to take in visual clutter. And as we age, we take in less and less. So if you have a lot of clutter in your house, it's taxing you, it's taking from you, right? It's causing you stress. And this really shows up in women. They have done so many studies to show that clutter, an over-cluttered house, directly raises cortisol in women, right? So cortisol is our fight or flight. So if you've got a lot of cortisol, you are adding stress to your life. I think at Yale, I'm not quite exactly right about this, but they did this really interesting study where they put people in a cluttered kitchen and they offered them a cookie and a carrot. And more of the people, almost exclusively in the cluttered kitchen, took a cookie. They repeated the experiment and they put them in an uncluttered kitchen, cookie, carrot. More people took the carrot. With less stress, it was easier to make healthy choices. Okay, now for seniors, there's a whole added level, older adults. There is one, as you know, as we age, our physical ability to do the things that we used to be able to do starts to reduce a little, right? I want to keep everybody safe in their homes. If you're choosing to age in place, I want you to stay in your house. But if there's a lot of clutter, it can present a safety issue, right? Are there things that you can trip over? Are there piles? Are you losing things all the time? So that's a big part of it. And another really big part of it is, do you want to leave a mess for the people behind you? Do you want to leave a mess for your family or your estate or your executor? I get brought in by so many families. And what happens is because their parents saved so much stuff before they passed and didn't declutter sort of in their fourth act, the family thinks that stuff is important. Well, my mom saved all these things, so they must be important, instead of realizing that they just got saved because somebody didn't take the time to declutter. So if you're leaving a mess for your family, it's not kind, and you're putting an undue burden on them. So just think about that as you start to look into what's coming next in the next chapter in your life. There is a really great and sweet little book, if you haven't read it, called The Swedish, and I think hopefully Deirdre will drop it in the Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. It's a really lovely little book, and it's written by a grandma, and there's recipes in it. And, it's a very great way to look at this idea of what am I leaving behind? So that might be something you might be interested in. Okay. So let's imagine, right? Let's imagine what our house would be like without clutter. What would it be like to have space? What would it be like to have extra time, extra money, less stress? What would it be like to have clean kitchen counters? What would it be like to have no piles greeting you? instead of focusing on beating yourself up or saying, I'm a bad housekeeper, all the millions of things you say to yourself, think about, what would I gain by having less stuff? Just everybody sit with that for a moment. So many times I'll say to my clients, like, well, what's your goal for downsizing, or what's your goal for getting rid of clutter? And they're like, I just want some peace. I just want some peace. So that, coming into it with this idea of a goal for what you can get, is amazing, 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 amazing. Okay. Why is decluttering so hard? Why? It's hard for everybody. I have a business. This is half my team. I have 12 people working for me now to come in and help people declutter. And here's why. It's physically hard. It's really hard. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of physical movement. It takes muscle. It takes that. But what it really takes is a lot of emotional work. So it takes being honest with yourself. Do I really need this? Do I really love it? Do I really use it? Right? And then you open this door of like, oh, did I waste money? And did I spend money I didn't have? And I bought this, and maybe I'm going to use it. Right? So there's this whole decision-making process that goes with it. And that's something really important to remember when your kids or somebody says, well, just throw it all away. It's a decision-making process. You have to decide if you use it, want it, love it. And if not, are you going to get rid of it? And how do you get rid of it? So I am going to, at the very end, I'm going to give a list of questions, of 5 questions you can ask yourself about everything in your house, which is fantastic. So that's coming at the very end. All right. So this is really important. These are the reasons, these are these emotional stories that we have all made up about why we can't let go of the things that we don't want, need, or use. I call them clutter blocks. This is all covered in my first book, but I want to just get people interested and aware of this idea that we've made up stories. And I've been doing this for 18 years now. We all have the same stories. They're a little bit variations, but they're all the same stories. And if you can see the story that you're telling yourself, then you can help break free of it. You can break free of the block. So block number 1 is, my stuff keeps me stuck in the past. So this is hanging on to things that keep us looking backwards. So clothes we might used to fit into, but we're not going to fit into anymore. Gravity's real. You know, there's things that happen to the body that it changes, and you're not going to get back there. And that's not a failing. I see so many people thinking they failed because they can't wear clothes that they wore in high school. You've been walking this planet for 50, 60, 70 years. You're not going to, do you have all of your kids' stuff? Do you have, is your kids' rooms a museum to their childhood, right? Is that, because the thing about this clutter block is it tells you that your best days are behind you. It keeps you looking backwards. Clutter block number 2 is, my stuff tells me who I am. These are logos. These are designer labels. These are, I'm an amazing shopper. And this goes both ways, because this is also, I get a great bargain. The people who shop, and that's their identity. And that shopping leads to clutter. Number 3, and full disclosure, this is my clutter block, avoiding my stuff. I hate to open my mail. I don't want to tell you how many emails are in my inbox. I avoid my stuff. Now, my business runs amazing. My personal life, because I'm just scared of what I'm going to find in there. And I'll tell you, when you avoid the business of being a grown-up, it's going to lead to clutter, right? Those letters from the IRS, they're not going to open themselves, and the IRS is not going to go away. So that's a really big one. This is one I see with a lot of my older adults. Number 4, my fantasy stuff for my fantasy life. I think I want to knit. I think I'd be an amazing knitter. I'm going to go out and buy everything that goes along with knitting. And then I realized I haven't even tried it. I don't like it, but I feel bad that I've spent the money, right? I fantasize about this thing that I think I should be, or, this like this person who I fantasize I am. One of my favorite things I hear from clients all the time is I'll go into their house and they'll have a big treadmill in their bedroom. And I'm like, this is a treadmill in the middle of your bedroom. It's taking up a lot of space. Do you use it? And they go, I use it every day to hang my clothes on. So this is right. If you fantasize that you're going to use that treadmill and you don't, let it go. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just turns out you don't like that thing. So really make sure that the stuff you have is in alignment with who you really are. I see this a lot too with my mostly men who keep a lot of tools. They used to fix their house, they used to fix their car. They don't do it as much as they used to. So they're kind of holding on to fantasizing that that will come back. Number 5, I'm not worth my good stuff. This one is so powerful. As I said, one of the services that we offer is that we help people clean out their houses after somebody's passed away. And I cannot tell you how many sets of china I've seen that have never been used, that were too special to use, unopened wedding presents, unused wedding presents, right? That they have all these beautiful things and they don't use them because they're too special. So use your good stuff. Today is the special day. That's going to be one of my things that I want everybody today to go and pull down the china, pull down the crystal goblet, have your apple juice in your crystal goblet. Use your nice stuff. Use your nice stuff. All right, number 6 is a big one too. Trapped with other people's stuff. This is if your kids or somebody has left their stuff at your house and they're like, well, you have a big house, you can hang on to all my stuff. This is also the stuff that have been left to us from people who have passed, right? That we have all this stuff that we've inherited and that they left, and we miss them so much that we hang on to the stuff, right? To keep the connection. But we don't want the stuff. We want the connection. The amount of stuff that you keep from someone who's passed in no way reflects how much you love them. So what happens is people will keep all this stuff and it will build resentment. Your garage is full of old furniture that was your grandmother's, but you can't use anymore because we don't have that kind of life. You are paying for a storage unit. You're holding on and you're resenting that you're doing it. So if you find that you're trapped with a lot of people's stuff, and we'll talk about this later, maybe there's a way that you can let it go. And the last clutter block is the stuff I keep paying for. This is the stuff that we bought that didn't work out, but by golly, we're going to hang on to it to prove to ourselves that we didn't waste our money. Sometimes we make a bad decision. Sometimes we make a bad purchase. We're not a bad person. We just made a mistake. We have to, I say, put on your big girl pants, acknowledge that that purchase was a wrong, didn't work for you, a waste, whatever the word you want to use, but keeping it's not gonna negate it, right? It just becomes clutter. So you're hanging on to it because you spent money on it. I'm sure these resonate with everybody. I did a really quick. This is all in my first book if you want to do a deeper dive. So I'll put all that at the end. But this is really like, if you start to pay attention to this, you'll start to see, oh, this is where I'm blocked. This is why I can't let go. All right. This is one of my favorite cartoons right now. It's been one of my favorite for a long time. And I wish I was in a room with all of you and I could see your faces, because this always makes people chuckle. But this really goes back to the heart of decluttering as a kindness to your family and your future generations, right? That leaving all this stuff puts such a burden on them because they don't know why you kept it and they think it's special. And we're gonna dive into that in just a second. So this just makes me laugh. And then I'm gonna just go back to this. Also, clutter is a health and safety issue. I don't want you tripping. I don't want you not being able to sleep in your bed. I don't want you not being able to cook a healthy meal. That as we age, in our little bit of cognitive decline. I mean, I can barely remember my husband's name these days. It's like less stuff is going to make that easier. Not bad, not, it's not a judgment. It's a fact. I see this a lot with people too, that they realize as they've aged that they're like not hosting the holidays the way they used to. They used to always host Passover and they're not doing it anymore, but they still have all the things. So we always have that conversation of, can we pass this to the next generation so that it can get used and then it's not cluttering up your house. My mom downsized a couple years ago from her big San Francisco house to a little house in Sonoma County. And I went up and helped her declutter and downsize. I will say it is difficult to have your own family help you. We only had one really bad fight in the basement, but she gave me all of our Christmas ornaments. She had collected them from Germany. They're so beautiful. They've lasted, 59 years now. But I don't really celebrate Christmas. I don't have children. My brother has little kids. They do the big Christmas. My husband and I do every other. He's Jewish and doesn't celebrate Christmas. So it was a tough decision, but I was like, if I keep these, they're just going to be in my garage. My brother and his family do a big tree. They have a big house. They have the room for it. So I sent all those decorations to my brother and my nieces and nephew, and they make this beautiful tree. And every other year I get to see it, and I'm not hanging on to it. So this decision, my mom let go, gave it to me, I let go, and now it's being enjoyed. So really think about decluttering as a kindness to future generations. All right. Here's the tough one. Your kids mostly don't want your stuff. This is so hard for people to understand. And this is for many, many, many reasons. One, the world has changed. The kind of furniture we use is different. We don't entertain in the same way. People are getting married later in life or moving out earlier, so they already have their own house full of stuff. This is a fact. Also, something really interesting has happened, and I'll just do a little history lesson. But a long time ago, it was like working class and upper class, right? There was no middle class. And so having decorative items was a status symbol. Lower class, low socioeconomic, they had things because they were tools and they used them. They couldn't afford to buy decor. And then with the advent of the middle class, especially after the two world wars, it became a status symbol to buy things just for decor. That's when you saw a spike in Hummels and Lalique and Yadro, right? That people had all these beautiful things that were not cheap when they bought them, right? But now we're at a point where people don't decorate that way anymore. It's not people's taste. And, I hear it all the time, but I spent all this money and I collected this thing and no one wants it. And people get so angry. Why don't my kids want that? This is such an important collection to me, to you. It's important to you. And you have to understand that your relationship to your stuff is not other people's relationship. You have to take a deep breath. I know it's heartbreaking. And I know that you feel like you work so hard, but you have to understand that that may be the fact. I had a woman, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, but I had a woman who had 4 sons who were all married, and she had beautiful china, beautiful, the Tiffany key pattern, gold, had to be hand washed, couldn't go in the dishwasher. And none of her daughter-in-laws wanted it. They had their own family china, or they didn't live that way, or they didn't want to deal with it in the dishwasher. She was so angry at her children that she cut off communication to them and came to me like, I don't understand why they don't want it. I'm so mad at them. This stuff is so beautiful. I loved it. She was so stuck into her relationship with it that she was willing to blow up her relationship with her sons, her daughter-in-laws, and her grandchildren over stuff. So just if this is resonating with you, just, pay attention. Like, yeah, I'm actually pretty attached to people's wanting what I want, whether they like it or not. So it's really, it's complicated. My grandmother I was so close to her, so close to her. You know, she was my heart and soul. And I have three things from her. I have a terribly ugly purse that she carried every day, and I have it hanging in my closet. It makes me smile. I have a tiny little notepad that has her granny handwriting on it, a grocery list that I just have on my desk and I look at, and I have her wedding ring. And that's it. That's it. And it makes me so happy because I see all three of those things every day. Okay. All right. What is your stuff really worth? So this is a bit of a left turn, right? Because when we think about letting go of our stuff, we get really bogged down in what's it worth. Okay. So valuable, worth, expensive. There are two different metrics. There's what you paid for it, right? There's what you paid for it. And then there's what someone will pay you cash for today. That's its value. What someone will pay you cash for today. What you bought it for, unless it's a Picasso, it doesn't have a lot of bearing, right? It's very, very hard for people to understand. Furniture. Furniture is a diminishing asset. We don't buy furniture to make money as an investment portfolio. We buy furniture to sit on and to sleep on and to eat breakfast at. I had a woman the other day who wanted to sell her breakfast room table. And she was like, I paid $2,500 for it and I want to sell it for $3,000. And I said, okay, well, when did you buy it? And she said, 1982. And I said, okay, so let's amortize, and I'm not going to do fast math on this. Let's amortize per meal what you spent. So it came down to like 1/16 of a penny or something. I said, here's the thing. You spent money to eat breakfast at that. You raised your family at that table. You enjoyed it. It did what it was supposed to do. It wasn't here to make you money. So as you start to declutter, I want to make sure that you don't get trapped in this cycle of, oh, it's got to be worth something. I need you to turn off Antiques Roadshow, please. It's very rare that they find something. A lot of it's planted. I hate to break it to you, right? I need you to be realistic of what will someone give you cash for today. Also, just because something's old doesn't mean it's valuable. I mean, we're old and we're valuable, but for stuff, a lot of stuff that's old was mass produced. So there's a lot of things out there that there's so many of. National Geographics. Nobody's going to buy them from you. There's millions out there, right? Encyclopedia Britannica. You paid a lot of money for it. You got it once a month or, once every couple months. No one's going to pay you money for it. It's all on the internet now. There's been an evolution to how we get information and stuff, which changes the value of our old stuff. Okay. Now, there's a part of it that's sentimental, right? That you have sentimental attachment, but what you feel about it sentimentally doesn't equate to what is someone will pay you money for. What you feel about it sentimentally will not equate to what someone will pay you money for. When my mom was downsizing, she had this old wicker rocker that had been in our house our whole life. I never liked it. I didn't like the style of it. It was super uncomfortable. It was now in her basement. It was broken. Like the wicker had broken. If anybody knows, it's almost impossible to get wicker fixed these days. And my mom was like, you have to take that. I was like, I don't want it. She's like, but you have to. It was your grandmother's. By the way, it was on my dad's side of the family, who my mom divorced a bajillion years ago. She's like, but it came around the Cape and it was this and it's your family history. And I'm like, that's not my family history. I don't like that chair. And she's like, well, maybe you can sell it. I'm like, it's broken, right? That this family lore had been attached to it. Apparently it came around Cape Horn, which doesn't track with how my family came to the United States. And, so there's a lot of that. I see a lot of that. Someone's auntie told them that it was worth something, or it's in a book, or, there's a lot of lore around what things are worth. So I just want everybody to make sure that you are getting accurate information about what your things are worth. And there's a couple ways to do that. One, you can use a licensed appraiser. They can come in. They're expensive and they're going to tell you most of your stuff isn't worth very much. So that's a really good way to do it. Another way, and I think probably, I think you probably have, Johnny, have you guys covered eBay here at all?
Yes, we have. We have
Okay.
lectures and workshops.
Great. So here's the thing about eBay, and I'm sure Johnny has said this to you. It doesn't matter what things are being listed for. It matters on what they sold, right? What someone's trying to sell something for isn't the value. You can go on and see all those Beanie Babies that people are listing for a lot of money, what they sold for. So if you're going to research what you think is valuable online, check the sold listings. Okay. We're doing great. Stop the family feud before it starts. I have seen this stuff break families down, break them down. Fights, people trying to make up for past scars and wounds and resentments by the stuff, fighting over the stuff. One of the kindest things you can do in addition to decluttering is decide who's getting what ahead of time, not leaving it for a scramble, giving the stuff away now. One of my most beloved clients, she started to give her jewelry away in her 80s and her whole family freaked out. That's so morbid. Why are you doing that? She's like, I have arthritic fingers. I can't wear my rings anymore. I would rather go to lunch with my granddaughter and see them wearing it. So if you can't, start to give it away now, start to see people enjoy it. Would nothing make you happier than to give your niece your china and then go have dinner there and eat off of it? Holding on to it and giving it at the end, it's just everyone's in grief and it's a family feud. I saw a family fall apart over a barber chair. Someone saw somewhere that it was worth $1,500 and the whole family wanted it and they stopped speaking to each other. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Okay. I'm going to do a quick little, we're doing great. I want to do a quick little selling versus donating. Okay. So let's start off with selling is difficult. It's time consuming. You have to take good photos. A lot of times you're going to be responsible for shipping it. It can be difficult. There are fantastic avenues. Facebook Marketplace is a great one. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Facebook Marketplace is a really great one, but I want you to take into consideration that it will take a lot of time. You have to post pictures, and a really big important thing is that people will be coming to your house to pick the stuff up. Do you live alone? Is that a safe thing? Can you have someone there with you? How are you going to exchange the money? How can you be careful about not getting scammed, right? And I know Johnny's going to be talking about Facebook Marketplace. So I just want everyone to be aware. It can be a fantastic resource, but there's a lot of work that goes with it. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Now, one of the young gals that works for me, she'll do it for some of our clients. She'll go in and help. She'll take the stuff. She'll meet the people, right? It just puts a layer of safety around it. So if you're considering selling, I want you to really find out what something's worth. And I want to make sure you do it in a safe and protected manner. And I know Johnny's going to go over a lot of this, but just maybe you have someone else there to come when you pick it up. Maybe you can have someone else help you list it. But it is a lot of work and you're gonna get pennies on the dollar. And that's okay. If that's what you want, great. But you are going to get pennies on the dollar. The next way to get rid of things, in addition to giving them away to people you know, is to donate. And it's great, but it can be difficult. Post-pandemic, a lot of places aren't coming to pick up. You've got to schedule it. If anything's broken, right? It can be a little bit harder than you think. I'm a really big fan of buy nothing groups. Johnny, I don't know if you guys ever cover those.
Which was that again?
Buy nothing groups.
I don't know. We have.
They're a community online of they're by neighborhood, and you just list it. And like the other day, I had 50 brand new 3-ring binders. So I just put it up, and a couple teachers called me and gave it. So buy nothing groups are a great way. Donating is a great way, but just understand that both of these are work, and just set yourself up for success. Have some help, hire a professional organizer if you can, get a grandkid to come, like really set yourself up for success and know that it is going to be a little bit difficult. And that's okay. Just understand that the days of like calling Goodwill and having them come and pick it up, it's just not quite that simple anymore. Okay, how are we looking at? We want to do questions in a couple minutes, right?
Yeah, we roughly about 15, 20 minutes for questions. Right now we're about 18 minutes left for questions.
Okay, I'm gonna go back, and I'm gonna actually get this. I think Julia can drop it in. These are 5 questions you can ask yourself about anything in your house, whether you can keep it or let it go. Do you use it more than once a year? Can you borrow it or reasonably buy it again? Does it make you money? Do you use it for your job? Do you have a place to store it? Or do you just love, love, love it? So I'll make sure that Julia gets this graphic. Also, I have a QR code at the end where you can sign up for my email list. And when you sign up for my email list, I will email this to you as a PDF. So this is a great, I mean, I could keep talking to you guys all day. I have so much information to give. Okay, so we've learned a lot, right? We want our homes to work for us. We want our homes to be restful and helpful and shareable. And we don't want to leave a mess for the people behind us. Great. So this is quick. These are my 2 books. I know Julia is going to put this in the chat. They're super helpful. Audiobooks on sale right now. All public libraries in the United States have them right now, which is fantastic. And so if you're interested in doing a deeper dive, this is a great way. Johnny, do you want to start flying some questions at me? I know there are going to be some fantastic ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to tell everyone that great job in asking such great questions in the chat room. And many of you are helping other people with great advice when it comes to donating books, I'm seeing, and other unwanted items. So there's a lot of great information, folks. Scan the chat room to see what other people are suggesting. You might have the same questions. But earlier at the top of the show, we did have a good question that I wanted to address. Somebody asked directly to one of my colleagues, how does one maybe like overcome that emotional block when it comes to getting rid of stuff?
So that's great. So there's a couple things. First is identifying which block you have. Are you worried that you spent the money? Are you sentimentally attached? Identifying which block is going to help you break free of it. And this is a really important thing. And this helps so many people. If you're really stuck and really blocked, oftentimes, if you can find a place to donate or someone to give it to, it makes it easier to let go. The thought of your stuff just going in a dumpster or maybe going to a big box thrift store, maybe it doesn't resonate with you. But let's say you love animals and you're like, well, I have all these old towels that I don't use anymore. I could give them to the animal shelter and I know that the little doggies and puppies could use them. It makes it easier. I had a client, she had to move her mother into senior living, like lickety split. She lived in LA. She flew back to St. Louis. She had to empty a whole house. She was like, I cannot bear to throw this stuff all in the trash. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have the time to stay here. I'm raising small children. It was just all, I don't want to put it in storage. And I said, well, you grew up there. Do you have a strong family community? And she said, I do. And she said, well, in fact, we have a family Facebook group. And I said, well, throw the furniture up there and see what happens. So she put pictures of the furniture up there. A second cousin was like, my daughter just got married. They're starting out with nothing. The daughter and her husband and 3 strong friends showed up with a U-Haul and took almost all the furniture and set themselves up in their new house. And it was so easy for my client to let go because she knew she was helping someone else. So if it really is hard for you to let go, maybe you just need that extra step of like, I know this is going to help someone. I'm going to find a nonprofit that speaks to me and donate to them so that I know it's going to good use. That's a really big part of it. So it's identifying which of the 7 clutter blocks and then maybe finding a place to donate that speaks to your heart.
Johnny, you're muted.
Oops, sorry about that. So yeah, another question that came in that I saw, is when it comes to finding a professional to help them declutter. If it's somebody who is dealing with a certain health condition and doesn't have the physical strength or even time to do it themselves, where can one find a professional? And what if someone can't afford a professional? What could they do then?
That's a great question. So there's a couple. You can just Google professional organizer in your community. There's an organization called NAPO, National Association of Professional Organizers. They have lists in every city. The main thing that I would tell you is that make sure that the person that you hire, you can talk to other clients. Professional organizing is a very trendy occupation right now. It's a bit like personal trainers. So there's a lot of people saying they do it when they haven't done it. So I just want you to be able to talk to someone they've worked with before. NAPO is a great place to start. A lot of senior centers in cities will have lists of professional organizers that they've vetted. And oftentimes some of them have it where they'll do it at a pro bono or a much reduced rate. So just do a little bit of due diligence, but NAPO, your local senior center, Google, but just make sure you can talk to a client and that they've worked with seniors before. That's very important because a lot of organizers haven't and don't understand the health issues and all sorts of things. So, a little bit of research. Also, if you want to reach out to me, info@Declutterfly, I think we'll have Julia put that in the thing. I have a pretty big community, so I can see if I know somebody in your city and help you out there.
Excellent. Now, for somebody who already has been decluttering, there was somebody in the chat room who mentioned this, that they've done some decluttering, but they wanted to know more about like daily maintenance because once they declutter, let's say a kitchen countertop, it becomes cluttered all over again. So is there anything you could say about daily maintenance when it comes to, mail stacking up, pending tasks, taxes, tax time, things like that?
That's such a great question. So I always say decluttering is a bit like dieting. It's an ongoing process. You don't just declutter once. You can do the big, deep declutter, but the stuff keeps coming in, especially mail. I feel like sometimes we go out in the world like a piece of Velcro and you come back and you have all this stuff stuck on you. You're like, where did it come from? So I always tell people to put a regular decluttering practice in, right? Once a week. I do it on Sundays at my house. I married a very messy man. That's a whole other workshop, navigating couples and that. But we spend Sundays putting everything away. And a really good test is if it takes you longer than 20 minutes to put a room back together in the way that you want it, that means the clutter's gotten the upper hand. Also, here's a really other good thing to know is that decluttering, organizing, and cleaning are 3 separate tasks. Lots of times we smush them together and we think we're going to do it all at once. It's not. There's decluttering, then there's organizing. Pens with pens, here's where my actionable mail goes, like with like, and then there's cleaning. And I think sometimes we just get mixed up and we sort of think organizing and cleaning, that's all one, and that's why it feels ongoing. But decluttering is its own task and it's ongoing. Mail comes in every day, right? Here's a really good thing too. Here's a couple good things with mail. Don't go more than 3 days without opening your mail, and take your mail from the mailbox and go straight to your shredder and your recycle bin. So that junk mail, just don't even let it get in the house. Don't even let it get on the counter. Just, you can tell it's junk, shred it straight away. Everybody should have an inexpensive, strong shredder. But once that stuff gets in the house and on the counter, it's like it gets its little claws in and it stays. So no more than 3 days without opening your mail, and don't bring the junk into the house. Recycle it if it doesn't have your name on it, shred it if it's got your name on it. Those couple tricks will really help you stay on top of the mail clutter.
Okay, awesome. And then there is a great question that came in from our Colorado team. The question is, how would you recommend moving on from things that have your personal information on them?
So yeah, I'm a big, I think everyone should own a shredder. You can buy them at Staples for about $49. Make sure they're the cross cut, not the strips. Cross cut is really important. There are also, if you have a lot, and I see this when people who are ending retirement, they say they were an attorney or they have all these files from work. There are fantastic mobile shred trucks that will come to your house and they will do it. I mean, we just did 80 boxes out of somebody's garage and they did it in 22 minutes. And they are so reasonable priced. So a mobile shred, if you're dealing with a lot of it, I know the UPS store will do shredding for you. I forget what the cost is per box. Oftentimes to pay attention, sometimes local realtors, even local professional organizers will do free shredding events, and they'll set up a mobile truck in a school parking lot. So keep an eye out for that. But those mobile shredders, if you're dealing with a lot of it, it's great. Shred, 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 shred till I'm blue in the face. Shred. You just right now, everybody, I know you all have talked about it here. It's just identity theft is beyond rampant. So really, even if people have passed away and you're like, oh, these accounts are closed, shred. And those mobile shred trucks are pretty amazing. They can do it so fast and they're so reasonably priced.
Awesome. And earlier you were talking when we were talking about selling versus donating. There were a lot of questions coming into the chat room that were hard to keep up with, but they were all very similar. Like a couple of people commented on how it could be difficult to sell stuff if their stuff isn't worth much. And lots of people shared answers to questions that came in about how do we find out if our stuff is worth anything. So I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add, but I'm wondering if everybody got their answers, their questions.
I do. And I want to kind of start with, and I just want to you need to start with the underlying basis that most of the stuff that we all own, not just you, we all own, really doesn't have a resale value. So when you accept that and you start from there, you're like, well, why am I going to put all this time and energy or put myself at risk to try and sell it? It's a very hard pill to swallow. I am the bearer of this news all the time. I had an appraiser come to a client's house in Beverly Hills, 10,000 square foot house, very fancy address. They had lived there for 75 years. She put the value of every stick of furniture in it, $1,500 for everything. So if you kind of understand that it is difficult and you're going to get pennies on the dollar, maybe the effort that you put into selling is not worth it, right? Maybe giving it away, donating, giving it to a neighbor, giving it to your gardener, your housekeeper, the young teacher in your neighborhood. It's just the world has changed. Nobody wants old dark brown furniture. It's just not in vogue right now. And I know it's so hard. I know how hard it is, but it really is just the world evolves in a way. And so it's not, you didn't do anything wrong. You're not taking advantage of it. It's just what's in style right now. So really kind of understanding that there's very little out there. I had a client just sell a bunch of tea sets, vintage, the silver tea sets, and they just melted them down. Nobody's buying them anymore. It was heartbreaking, but it's the world moves at a really fast pace, and it's the facts. So just understanding that there's very little you're going to get a lot for, if anything, and maybe skipping that. Maybe you don't even try and sell it and you just donate it.
Okay. And so going back to where we were talking about shredding, somebody asked a good question. How do we know where to start? Let's say, and a few people mentioned made similar comments. So, I saw one individual who wrote that they have a box of papers that stem back to 30 years back. So when it comes to shredding and getting rid of papers, things like that, documents, how do you know what to shred and what to keep for maybe tax purposes and whatnot?
Yeah, this is a great question. So the very first place that I need you to start with is your tax preparator. Call the person who does your taxes and say, what do I need to keep? My business has been closed for 20 years. It's all done. Do I need to keep these historical records? It's so based on your personal taxes. Old credit card, old department store receipts, right? Like I see this all the time. People have statements from department stores that are closed. There's no more Buffums. There's no more Liberty House. There's no more those, right? Those can be shredded. So really talking to your tax person and saying, what do I need to keep to protect myself from the IRS, to keep cost basis? Another really important one is closed bank accounts. You don't need those. Are the bank that you currently have, can you access all your records digitally? Do they have all the statements? If you can do that, you don't need to keep. So call your investment broker, call your financial planner, call your tax preparer. What do you need to keep? You know, I know for doctors and lawyers and therapists and things, sometimes there's a HIPAA of, I think it's state to state, but somewhere between 10 and 12. Like, do your due diligence and find out. But so much of it, we don't need to keep. I was helping a client do some forensic accounting recently, and they had to get, because of a sale of a house, they had to get bank statements from Washington Mutual. We were able to get them. It took a while. They live somewhere, right? So it's really understanding, you know, stepped up cost basis. What do you need to prove? You know, so many stocks and bonds have gone digital now. So really call your financial advisor, call your tax preparer, find out specifically for your situation. Like, you know, for most people, you don't need to keep a $75 plumbing bill. Not that there are $75 plumbing bills that much anymore, but right, that's a small repair to your house. A new roof? Yeah. So really call your person and find out specifically to you. Do the research. And this is what happens. Paper clutter is the cause of over retention. Exactly what this question is. We're keeping so much because we just don't know. I don't know when I need to keep it. So please reach out to your people. I'm also going to do, I think I'm going to do a series. I've been getting this question a lot and I haven't covered it in a while. So I think I'm going to do a series on my Instagram account and my YouTube page in the next month or so about paper clutter. So maybe I can send it to Senior. You guys can set it out or something. So keep an eye, follow my YouTube page, but I want to really address this. But do your research, ask the people that are helping you with your taxes, because really the paperwork that you need to keep supports your taxes and property that you own.
Okay, I don't know, are we taking questions from the audience? I see Shelley has her
I
hand
think
up.
timing wise, I think we need to move on to the next
okay.
segment, but we'll
Sure.
also be sharing with folks in the chat a couple of places where we'll have follow-on conversations. One on Wednesday around paper decluttering specifically. And then as Tracy
Right.
said, she's also going to have some stuff come out on her YouTube channel. So definitely check that out.
And people can definitely if you want to scan this QR code, you know, and join my email list. I put out a lot of stuff. I'm happy to be a resource to you. Please send it info@declutterfly.com. You know, however I can help. I know it's a big cluttered world and I'm just happy to be here as a resource.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for being here. Great presentation. There's a lot of great comments. I'm hoping you have a chance to scan the chat room.